Hello YouTube, it's Carrie, and basically I'm taking a chance to sit down here tonight and make a follow-up video to my previous video on anxiety and my issues with it. And basically that video got a lot darker than I was expecting it to, but pretty much when I was making that video, I was having one of my episodes, and these happen every so often. Like, I think I said in the video, the night that I made the video, the very previous night, I had had one of the worst breakdowns that I had in a very long time. But surprised, I'm here and doing fine, and this is one of the stupid, frustrating things about my various issues, is that they come and they go. And, you know, at the time that I made that video, I was very much not okay. I was in one of my panicky freak outs, and then all of a sudden, a few days later, it's just like something else triggered my mind that put me in a good mood, and everything's been peachy keen ever since. I don't understand it, frankly. But this is pretty much how it's always been. It's just that it comes and it goes. And usually what happens is that something triggers me. And a lot of times it's different. Sometimes it's the same things. There is sort of a repeating pattern with it. Usually it's something that makes me feel inadequate, or something that makes me get into this mindset of, I'm not a woman, I don't deserve to be seen as a woman, and those thoughts, the more I think about them and the more I dwell on them, the more it becomes this self-depreciating spiral that just sucks me in until I cannot think of anything else, and no matter what kind of mental coping methods I try to use, no, it's not going to help. I just have to cry it out and just let all of those negative emotions hit me. And then again, there will be something positive that happens a couple of days later, and all of a sudden it'll be like, wow, how was I ever feeling so bad about myself? And right now I'm kind of in that mindset. Like, I look at myself in the camera this time and I actually feel quite pretty. And it probably helps that I spent a bit of extra effort straightening my hair tonight, but where, you know, in some of my previous videos, that's all that I can do just to make the video at all because I feel so hideous. And again, it's always back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, from just feeling completely fine to all of a sudden being in complete emotional panic breakdown mode where I can't even think straight. So I just wanted to make this update video to talk kind of about some of the complications with this anxiety issue, and also how I am dealing with it. And trust me, there have been a few things that definitely snapped me out of that panicky mindset that I was in last time, and I want to talk about those. So, first of all, basically, I think there was one commenter who hit the nail on the head, and he said, "You are making a lot of assumptions here." And I think looking back at that video, it's like, wow, those are a lot of assumptions. Even looking back at the video where I was complaining about not being passable, you know, that whole breakdown started because somebody kind of sort of misgendered me. They said she, and that's it. And again, somehow I turned that from a simple slip of the tongue, which could have been for any reason. How am I supposed to know what the reasoning was for? I just automatically jumped to the worst case scenario where I was like, okay, it's because I'm not passable, which means that I'm not passable to anyone. No one sees me as a girl. Everyone is just humoring me. I'm just this poker room's token tranny, and ta-da, emotional breakdown. And I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that I was in an emotional slump for about a month after that, because again, I don't know what to do about this once it hits. It just, sometimes I just need to let the emotions run their course, and there's really nothing that I can do about them. And other times, like now, I can't imagine, like, I look back at myself and I'm like, what in the world was I thinking? How could I possibly have felt so bad about myself? Like, yeah, I don't necessarily like my face as much as I could, and I do kind of have wide shoulders, and obviously my genitals are still wrong, but how could I have felt so hopeless and so I'm not even a woman at all? It just doesn't make sense to me, where it made perfect sense at the time, to the point where I felt hopeless. So, again, this is just an issue with me. what finally snapped me out of that last freak out was actually, I was talking to one of my female friends. I have a lot of internet friends, and see, that's another thing, is that during the last video I complained, I don't have any friends. Bullshit, I have friends. It's just that I don't have, in my actual real life here in the city that I live in, I don't have like a friend to pal around with or a boyfriend or a girlfriend to snuggle with at night. That's what I meant when I said I was lonely. But I have a ton of internet friends. Like, I've been keeping a blog on Susan's Transgender forum since the very beginning of transition. And I probably have like 10, 15 people that I met through going through this entire process with me. And I talk to them all the time on Facebook, and even though they don't go to Susan's anymore. And I also have internet friends that I met from the Tangled message boards, and I talk to them pretty much constantly. And they actually might be watching this video right now, so they know who they are. And, you know, we actually watch movies together several times a week, so, you know, it's not like I'm completely socially alone. It's just, in the moment of panic, it's like my brain blows everything out of proportion. Again, it exaggerates. I don't have someone right now with me to snuggle with to make me feel better, into, I don't have any friends, I'm so lonely and pathetic, and again, it's basically a panic. And again, that's what you might call an anxiety attack, because it's based on nothing concrete. It's just your mind running away with you and taking things that are kind of a slight persistent bother and turning them into something that you hate yourself for. Even though realistically there's probably not a reason to hate yourself for it, but it happens. So what finally pulled me out of this was talking to one of those internet friends, and she was talking to me about how at work she kind of gets a bit like this sort of infantizing treatment from a lot of guys, where like when she's trying to open a box, they'll be like, oh, let me help you with that. And it's like, okay, I don't think my manager would exactly be happy with you taking a crowbar from a store employee and trying to open the box. But because she's short and very feminine, you know, people kind of have this sort of infantizing way of treating people who are short and feminine. And I realized I actually know exactly what she's talking about, because I've noticed, and see, this is one of the interesting things about being trans, is I know exactly how people treat men and how they treat women. And at work now, I get some of that same infantizing treatment. On the one hand, because I'm taller and more sporty appearing rather than, you know, kind of the more feminine, cute appearing, I do get a certain level of respect, but at the same time, I've noticed that people don't tend to respect my word as much. Like, especially when I'm at the front podium. I will tell people to go to a certain table, and they are more likely to not listen and say, well, can I go to that one? And I have to explain to them like 3 times that no, you have to go to the table with more seats open, because we have to keep them balanced with the same amount of players at each one. And I didn't used to have that problem as much. And another one is when I tell people, I'm sorry, we have a waiting list. You'll have to get your name on the list, and we will call down the list to fill all the seats. People are more likely to completely ignore what I'm telling them, point to a seat that looks open and say, what about that one? Can I have that one? And I have to explain to them, no, you can't. There is a waiting list. The people who are on the list above you would get that seat first. Also, there's still chips in that seat, so that person is just on a meal break. You know, there is a certain level of respect that you don't get anymore. And it's the same thing when I'm calculating side pots. People assume that I don't know how to do math, where they used to just be quiet and let me do the math and figure out the side pots myself. Now it's like 30 in the main pot, 30 in the side pot. Oh, hang on, I have to do the math. No, but there's just 35 and I have to do the math. So while I was having that conversation, something kind of clicked where it's like, wait a minute, I know exactly what she's talking about. And for some reason during all of transition, like, one of my issues is that I internalize society's various hateful messages, and why they say that trans women aren't valid or aren't women. So I hate to admit this, but I'm constantly policing myself, making sure that I am not doing like any sort of masculine behavior that would like still be in me because I was socialized hypothetically as male for the first 25-ish years of my life. So, you know, I'm constantly afraid that there's still some of that left, and that, you know, I'm not going to be acting as feminine as an actual, like, assigned female at birth person would. Radical feminists accuse trans women of still having male privilege, and something about that conversation, all of a sudden something clicked in my head where it registered, this is what women are talking about. They are accusing trans women of still having that othering of feminine appearing women. Okay, apologies for that. My camera battery died while I was filming, so I had to switch filming positions. But in any case, like, that is the quote male privilege that, you know, the trans exclusionary feminists are talking about, is that sort of othering behavior of feminine appearing women. And basically that means that you are infantizing the women that you are with. And this is something that I've seen a lot of trans women who are early in transition kind of do, is they will still treat the pre-transition trans men in sort of this cutified, aw sort of manner. And again, something clicked in my head where I realized that is what they are talking about, is they feel like that sort of talking over behavior and that sort of not respecting small feminine girls as equals who deserve the same space to speak and deserve to be seen as capable and deserve to be seen as able to do their work. So that was a real mental revelation for me, because I realized I don't do that anymore. I've kind of taught myself to pay attention to everyone and to yield conversation and to listen to what everyone has to say rather than talking over people. And this is something that has just changed drastically with transition. And I sort of realized I don't do that anymore. So that male privilege that I was so afraid that I still had, and I was like criticizing myself for the way I was sitting and the way I was talking and the way I was interacting with people. And one of those things that was just triggering my anxieties about not being female enough, I was wrong about that. I am plenty female enough in that regard. That male privilege that people are afraid that trans women have, I definitely do not have. So I guess that was kind of, all of a sudden something clicked in my head where I realized, you know what, I have the right to see myself as a woman. And I really do believe that society is seeing me completely as a woman, because I get this exact same like infantizing treatment that other women get. And something about that just kind of calmed me down. And I became a bit less self-critical. And I was able to simply go about my day and live my life and not spend it trapped in my own head criticizing myself as much. And then shortly after that, I watched this video of somebody who was born female assigned, and yet they had this genetic mutation that had made them be born without hair, without teeth. And this person did not look female, because so much of presenting as feminine is about long hair, and it's about a certain facial shape, which she did not have. But the thing is, like, and I realized as I was watching this video, I'm like, wow, I bet there's a lot of people who watch her who criticize her for like not looking like a girl. And I bet that there's a lot of people who make mistakes, and they'll be telling her things like, and you know, they'll accidentally misgender her. And then she said, would be like, no, I'm actually a girl. And again, something clicked where I realized that gender is just what you are. it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. It's an innate biological fact that is not something that anybody else can say, no, you're not. Like, and that's the thing, is that if anybody says, what, you can't be a girl, they're just flat out wrong. She is. Because again, it's just a biological fact. It's not up to anyone's opinion. And really, I have the right, and I kind of realized I have the right to do the exact same thing. You know, my gender is not anyone else's opinion. I know what I am, and I definitely look and sound enough like, you know, if somebody thinks that I'm not, I can say, I'm sorry, I'm actually a girl. It's just, you know, I had to deal with more testosterone in my system than the average girl. So, you know, I look a bit larger built and I have a bit deeper voice than most women do. But no, I'm a girl. And so, again, that was just something that let me calm down, is that it took the power out of other people's hands. And that's one of the things that was causing me anxiety, is I felt like these other people had the power to deny my right to exist and to deny what I'd worked so hard for and what I'd seen myself as my entire life and yet thought that I would never get. It turns out I had that right all along, if I had only had the will to assert it. And being able to feel like I was in control of my own identity instead of letting other people have that control, which led me to constantly be worried about other people's opinions, helped immensely. And I have most definitely calmed down and felt more self-assured. And this happened only a few days after I made that video. Like, I made that video on September 22nd. This happened pretty much as soon as October started. And it's kind of funny. I actually had my first meeting with a new therapist, like, I think it was like October 6th that I had that meeting. And I'm actually talking about getting approval letters for gender reassignment surgery. And, you know, when I went into that meeting, it was all of a sudden like, he probably thought that everything was right with the world with me. And, you know, it's like, I talked to him about thinking that I might have anxiety, and, you know, it's kind of funny. I mentioned that I have a YouTube channel, and he said, would you mind sharing that YouTube channel with me? I'm just imagining that he watched that video on anxiety, and he's like, who the hell is this person? Again, it kind of makes no sense. Sometimes I do feel like emotionally I am two different people. There's the self-hating, anxious, freak-out Carrie who can barely function in life, and every single task is nearly impossible because of how much I criticize myself. And then there's happy, self-assured, feeling beautiful Carrie that looks in the mirror and smiles and goes to work and jokes around with people. And I think you've seen this dichotomy in my videos where, you know, 1 minute I'm making stupid, funny videos where I'm cracking jokes and, you know, eating potato chips and joking about how Doritos lied to me. And then in the next video, I'm like, I'll never be a woman. My transition is a failure. I'm nothing but a freak. This is kind of the confusing nature of how I am. And the dumb thing is, even after I came to these revelations that I just told you about, which suddenly pulled my mood all the way up, I hate to admit it, but I had another freak out. And this happened when my mom and my uncle were visiting me for my 30th birthday. We went to lunch in Columbus, which is very much a upcoming hipster district. And there were a lot of young women with small bone structures, very feminine girls dressed very nicely. And I was sitting there wearing workout clothes because we were going to the Dawes Arboretum and we were going to walk around. And so I was dressed for walking, and I just felt all of a sudden like a linebacker compared to those feminine girls. And I started panicking. And again, it's usually some kind of trigger that starts me panicking. And I started getting down on myself again. And I'm like, damn it. Ugh, look at that small bone structure. That's a real girl. I'm not a real girl. I look like a freaking linebacker, and I hate my shoulders, and I hate my angular face, and I want to be feminine like them. They're so pretty, and I'm ugly, and nobody will ever love me. And that freak out lasted for a few hours in the afternoon until finally I asked my uncle to take a video of me from the back, because one of the dumb things that I was afraid about is that my butt is flat and I have a pancake butt, which was proven wrong, thank God. Actually, I'm kind of impressed. It's like I used to not have much of a butt whenever I saw myself from the back, where now, like, when my uncle took a video of me from the back, it's almost like when I have an anxiety freak out, my mind runs away with me, and honestly, I measured my shoulders compared to my mom. Mine are only about 1.5 inches wider. But in my mind, looking at those like feminine small-built girls, my own body gets bigger by comparison in my head. And my facial features get more masculine by comparison in my head. And unless I have a mirror or a video camera to prove to myself that I don't look as bad as I think I do, my thoughts run away with me. And it blows it completely out of proportion. So the way that this particular freakout ended was that I gave my uncle my video camera and said, Joe, I know this sounds stupid, but just take a video of me walking from the back. Just hold the camera there. I'm going to walk away. Keep the camera focused on me. And I was shocked to find my butt was nowhere near as flat as I thought it was. My shoulders looked nowhere near as big in the back as I thought they looked. And honestly, in that video, I just looked like a girl with a kind of masculine face and an androgynous build. But I looked like a girl, so that calmed my freak out. So again, this time I really do not have answers. This is just kind of a follow-up video to talk about some of the lingering frustrations, and I am actually trying to deal with the anxiety issue using cognitive behavioral therapy. And the way that CBT works is that, I think I kind of mentioned this, that anxiety works by letting your thoughts completely run away with you until the thing that you're imagining in your head is so much worse than it is in real life, or that it can even possibly be in real life, even if it's the worst case scenario. So the way that you combat that is to anchor yourself back in reality. Ask yourself, how do you know? Like, suppose I'm having an anxious thought, nobody will ever love me. How do I know? I have to ask myself that question. And once I ask myself how I know, there is no way to know. Because the only validation I've gotten in real life in the last few months is people complimenting me for being attractive and having guys ask me out. So how can I possibly say nobody will ever love me and I'm unattractive when I constantly get real world validation telling me otherwise? How do I let my mind run away with me like that? And again, that's the thing, is just to anchor yourself back in reality and just realize that the things that you're afraid of could not possibly be that bad in real life, rather than letting your thoughts run away with you, rather than dwelling on the hypotheticals and the what ifs. Do stuff and realize, and it can even be small increments at the same time. Like if you're afraid of going to a party, start out by just calling someone. Start out by just having a casual conversation or inviting one person out to lunch before you move on to this scary space with all of these hypotheticals, with all these anonymous people in a public setting, which is seriously anxiety triggering. Do small steps, and through those small steps, slowly prove to yourself that the way that things go in real life is always much better than you are fearful of in your head. And through that, you slowly retrain your brain to realize that it's just anxiety talking. And it's not worth it to let your mind run away with you, because your mind is wrong. And so that's another thing that I've been trying to do recently, is to get myself out of my own head and back into doing some of the things that I've always wanted to do. Such as, there's a lot of times where I don't make videos because I'm afraid I look bad. But And yet I've never really gotten comments on my videos telling me I look ugly. Again, it's exactly the opposite. People always tell me, you're so beautiful. How can quit being so hard on yourself? So, you know, again, just do the things that you're afraid of. And I'm working on that. So, I am slowly going to work on getting some of my old video projects started back up again. I do want to work on transmedia eventually, which I made like the pilot episode of and then completely threw away because I got into all of this self-hating freak out BS. And I'm also working on a project where I'm rereading all of the Animorphs books, which was a favorite book series of mine from when I was a teenager, one at a time. And I always wanted to finish them, but I never did it. And, you know, I stopped myself from doing that because I'm like, well, okay, the people that follow me on my blog wouldn't be interested in it. Again, how do I know? Read the damn books. I want to do it. Read them, write about them, get it done. It will slowly help me establish a rhythm and get used to working on things and again, just do things instead of letting myself just stick around in this blank space of nothing but self-criticism. So that is what I'm working on, and again, I just wanted to make a follow-up video basically because I hate making depressing videos, and I am not somebody to admit defeat, ever. I will always keep fighting, trying to get over any issue that I have, and I am determined to get to a place where I am happy with myself and living life and not letting all of my issues get in the way. And so yeah, that's my follow-up video. Bye everybody.